You're listening to Candid Cannabis Conversations, a show where the title says it all. Here are your hosts, Strain Slayer and Blunt Betty.
Hello, and thank you for listening to episode number 2 of Candid Cannabis Conversations. I am your co-host, Blunt Betty, and this is my co-host,
Strain Slayer. Thanks for listening.
Thank you guys again for joining us. I think we're going to have an interesting show for you this week. Last week in the Florida state government, the House of Representatives had a committee come forth and introduce some bills concerning medical marijuana and our right to smoke it in the state because we don't currently have that right. And the governor has announced that they need to get their shit together by mid-March.
Yeah.
And do right by us. So they're making their arguments, apparently. I listened to it and I got really frustrated. I think you were at work. I may have been sending you messages the whole time.
You were, and I was doing my best to keep up with them.
I'm going to bring forth to you guys is a lot of the things that I heard them say in this hearing. It's not so much what their goal is that I'm concerned about. I mean, I am concerned about that, but I think that the people in the politics that are going to be voting for this are not going to allow this to go through. I hope that they're not going to allow this to go through the way that they have it set up. What I'm concerned about is that people running our government and making our decisions across this country have these attitudes still and are affecting our health over these attitudes. And that's what I want to confront more than anything else, really.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I mean, there's no reason to hold that attitude anymore. I was frustrated as well when I finally caught up with all the information you sent me. Listening to that, they don't have our best interests in mind, obviously. It got me a little fired up as well.
I guess without further ado, what I'm going to play for you guys is Senator Harrell is the presenter of this bill, and I recorded a lot of her statements specifically because she, as she presented the bill, she made a lot of claims. She chose specifically the National Academy of Medicine. They did a report, and it was a very extensive report. And they came up with over 100 conclusions in this report, and they broke it down into a really nice, easy to read PDF form. It's pretty simple to read from. So everything that we're going to discuss is going to be quotes from their website and their conclusions or the studies that they used the conclusions from. That's going to be everything that we discuss unless otherwise brought up. So with that, without any further ado, we're going to hear what she had to say with her quote in regards to the National Academy of Medicine.
In a recent exhaustive review by the National Academy of Medicine in 2017, they found that cannabis, and I'm quoting,
That's just to clarify that she herself has used the National Academy of Medicine to back up her claims. And I mean, again, we're going to discuss this further, but I just wanted to go, just put out there right away the reason that we're using them as our resource here. And now let's get down to the nitty-gritty of the actual claims that she made and what the claims were or the conclusions that the National Academy of Medicine, that NAM, came up with.
cannabis use is likely to increase the risk of developing schizophrenia and other psychoses. The higher the use, the greater the risk.
That claim and that quote is indeed a quote that they made. I'm not going to argue that point at all. And you've had some points of view on schizophrenia and how it affects people.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, you can't deny that was obviously something that they came up with, but...
A couple other things they also said is that in individuals with schizophrenia and other psychosis, a history of cannabis use may be linked to a better performance on learning and memory tasks.
But she left that out, didn't she?
Yeah, she cherry-picked a lot. I don't have any personal experience with cannabis and schizophrenia. I can tell you I've done a lot of research, and that my research has said clearly, no matter what, if there is a connection between schizophrenia and cannabis or not, it does not cause schizophrenia. It may possibly take somebody with the genes and the susceptibility to already be likely to have schizophrenia. it may possibly trigger that in them. There is some connection that those studies have shown. I don't know if that's correct yet or not, but that is what some of the studies have shown. Okay.
Yeah, and with that though, I've spoken to patients that deal with schizophrenia and like conditions, and whether or not there is a link to that, and what may initially bring those symptoms out in a person that they hadn't realized, or whatever the case. Many patients with those same symptoms also use cannabis and find a lot of relief. I think a lot more research definitely needs to be done, because you have studies like that and people making quotes saying that cannabis is likely to increase the symptoms. But at the same time, you have patients that are, they're knowingly schizophrenic. They've been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and they're self-medicating with cannabis because they're finding relief. Another interesting quote from NAM was, cannabis use does not appear to increase the likelihood of developing depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder. It's weird that she chose to only put in quotes about increased psychosis and schizophrenia, yet there's all these other quotes that clearly link cannabis to a ton of beneficial effects. So
if the studies that are done in the future do link cannabis to be associated to some of these conditions, well, first of all, these conditions can be associated with a lot of different things. And second of all, that doesn't mean that the risks outweigh the benefit. It just doesn't.
That's very true.
And that is a personal goddamn choice that we should be able to make. I'll try not to drop GDs because I know that's offensive to people, but I'll still say fuck.
Oh, man.
And just to bring up, too, I've done a lot of research this week, and the whole point of this hearing that they had, and I don't know if hearing is the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use. The whole point of it was smoking. Were we allowed to smoke? I can find no information that leads that smoking cannabis affects mental health disorders such as schizophrenia, anxiety, psychosis, violent behavior, which she also claimed. I don't think that's one of my snippets, but she also claimed violent behavior. I can find no difference between smoking cannabis and ingesting it, topical, vaping it, none whatsoever. So why is this even relevant to the case of smoking is one of my questions.
That's a really good point. I mean, to that point, it further proves that there's people out there that just want to take cannabis away, or they don't want it to be accessible. Her point wasn't even about smokable cannabis. It was really just an anti-cannabis tyrant or an anti-cannabis rant.
Oh, it's going to get better. All right. And I guess with that, we will move on to the next one.
All right.
Here is Senator Harrell's next claim in her speech, I guess, whatever.
There is a significant association with smoking marijuana and cancer.
Wow. Can she back that up? I would love to see that.
Well, let's just back it up and listen to it one more time. How about that?
Yeah, I would love to.
There is a significant association with smoking marijuana and cancer.
The only significant correlation between smoking cannabis and cancer that I know of is that the cannabis is bringing these cancer patients. That's the only correlation. There's a lot of cancer patients using cannabis. I have yet to find one reliable source that shows any research that links cannabis use to significant increase in cancer risk. Exactly.
So with that, the NAM, the National Academy of Medicine's quote regarding cancer, one of their quotes, the evidence suggests that smoking cannabis does not increase the risk for certain cancers, lung, head, and neck in adults. With that being said, there was some minor results that showed that there may have been a link with testicular cancer and cannabis. But that, again, was not smoking cannabis. That was just cannabis in general. And we already are legally allowed to have cannabis in general if we're patients.
Wow. That honestly is crazy. I didn't hear that quote before. So that's like, hearing that for the first time really like shocks me to think. It's 2019. The evidence is so clear, and you still have people out there making claims like that, misinforming people.
Not just people that are making decisions about our health.
Yeah, I guess that is the big point. I mean, that really just drives me. That makes me want to go twice as hard. If you've got people out there making those types of claims, we need to be out here twice as much informing people that there's no evidence to support that. In fact, if NAM is saying that the evidence suggests that smoking cannabis has no correlation or no increased risk to all these types of cancer, how can you as a public figure stand up and make those claims?
And where's your evidence to back it up without it being cherry picked? One of the studies that they used to make this decision regarding cancer found no statistical significant association between smoking cannabis and lung cancer incidence. This was true for all study participants as well as for the subgroup of study participants who were not tobacco smokers. So they did a study. They included tobacco smokers and non-tobacco smokers in this study. And again, their study claims that there is no statistical significant association between smoking cannabis and lung cancer. Another one of their findings that they have found was that study participants with cumulative cannabis exposure equal to 1 to 10 joint years, they were found to have a statistical non-significant decreased risk of developing esophageal cancer compared to participants who never used cannabis. They're saying it's a decreased risk.
Right,
even
right.
though it's non-significant. They have a lot of non-significant things they brought up, but they are stating there was a non-significant finding.
Yeah.
They said there's a decreased risk in patients who smoke cannabis and have esophageal cancer.
That is insane. That is what they're saying. It's a statistically non-significant decreased risk of developing esophageal cancer compared to participants who never used cannabis. So they're saying patients who used cannabis do have a decreased risk.
At least a really minor part of them. And I think that's so important for all of us on both sides of the fence to keep in mind. We do not know yet. Yes, we have these studies that show this, and they might be wrong and they might be right. We don't know yet. We need more studies, and I'm not going to deny that maybe some of this is harmful. There may be harmful effects. I'm sure there's harmful effects. Nothing is utopia, but let's find out what they really are, not just make up shit.
I agree. I think the main point, though, with that quote is the fact that these are all coming from the same source that the senator's using to try to bash cannabis and smoking cannabis, which is the main point, which, like you brought up, I still haven't heard a single point to what smoking cannabis has to do with any of this.
So, we have a couple more quotes just from that same area of cancer that they pulled from. Among participants who never smoked cigarettes, the risk of esophageal cancer was not statistically different between those who had ever smoked cannabis and those who had never smoked cannabis. And then one more little thing that they also had to say about it. One of the studies found 2 studies on the non-Hodgkin lymphoma risk. There's some other little stuff there that, basically it found the study involving 3,376 women and heterosexual men to determine risk factors for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Those who reported using cannabis less than 40 times had statistical significant decreased risk of developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma. 40 or more occasions, those who used it on 40 or more occasions, the risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma was further depressed.
Wow.
So her statement there that says that it's, what did she say again?
That it would significantly increase the risk of cancer?
So there's a study here that's showing that it actually may prevent or at least help out a little bit.
If nothing else, I mean, significant increase. I'm stuck on that. I'm really stuck on the fact that she would use such bold terms as significant increase. And these studies, obviously, and I'm not making claims that it cures these diseases or anything like that, of course, but there's evidence to suggest that it may lower the risk or at least have no effect, which is counter to her entire argument, to her entire point.
Right. So again, we're using her resource, and these are all from that website that she chose to Google and cherry pick from. We're doing the same thing here. Alrighty, it looks like our next topic is respiratory, which I'm sure is a controversy topic because you are inhaling smoke, so.
Respiratory problems are significant.
She likes that word, doesn't she?
She does. I was just about to say, she just loves the word significant. I would like to see some significant data to back that up.
Her claim was that respiratory problems are significant. To break down the next quote, we'll kind of break it down together. And it was, the authors found that short-term exposure to cannabis smoking resulted in bronchodilation, opening of the bronchia. Specifically, acute cannabis smoking was consistently associated with improvements in specific airway conductance, peak flow measurements, and FEV1, as well as reversed bronchospasm from challenges by either methocline or exodine. So in other words, from what I'm reading in this is that they have actually found that it actually improves breathing, specifically from exercise.
Right. They're saying it short-term exposure in cannabis smoking actually resulted in bronchodilation. So, I mean, when she's sitting here making the claims that it's has significant detrimental effects on your respiratory system, and then we've got obvious evidence here that's suggesting that short-term exposure actually helps with these things. Like, the hypocrisy is just very evident here.
These are the people, again, this isn't just Florida. I'm sure that there's probably politicians in California and Colorado who are making these same statements, but they probably get railroaded by the rational people. But this is still going on across our country. There are still people that don't have legal access to cannabis because of people like this. That's not right. Not okay.
No. I just don't understand how somebody can actively fight medicine that people are out there saying, I'm finding a lot of relief in this, and it's millions of people across the world. And they have been for thousands of years. We've been using this, and how people are still actively using their resources, their power, their voice to fight this. How do they sleep at night? Do they not have a conscience? Do they not realize that they're literally limiting people from medicine, from relief, from a peace of mind, a quality of life? I don't know.
There's a lot of heartlessness that goes into this. It's almost cruelty, and I don't think that they are aware of that. I think that they are so deluded and misguided that they actually think that they're helping us.
It's a scary thought.
It really is. And I think some of them, yes, are like downright evil, and they have money involved in this, and they want to keep making their money, and that's why they're fighting it. But I think some of them listening to this, I think some of them actually believe the shit they're spouting.
Yeah. I mean, ignorance is bliss, so.
Yeah. And so her next statement was regarding our cardiac health. This is kind of interesting too.
Smoking also may trigger acute myocardial infarction, heart attacks.
Wait, what? Did she just say that? I need to hear that again.
Smoking also may trigger acute myocardial infarction, heart attacks.
Smoking cannabis might trigger a heart attack.
Yeah. Hey, all you millions of people out there that have smoked cannabis, can you let us know if it ever triggered your heart attack?
Love to hear that story. That'd be a first.
And what does NAM have to say about it?
So NAM says the evidence is unclear as to whether and how cannabis use is associated with heart attack, stroke, and diabetes.
Now, this is the National Academy of Medicine who conducted this extensive study, and they are stating that they can't come up with, it's unclear to them whether it affects us or not. But yet this senator with absolutely zero formal education in the healthcare industry, zero, folks. Her degrees are in Spanish and Latin America, not health. She is stating that it will trigger a heart attack, but yet this medical, extensive study can't make that statement. So where is her information coming from?
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, how do you back up such a bold claim like that? I would love to hear your evidence of, said thing. Is it anecdotal stories of your friend Jim's sister Bob's cousin who had a heart attack after smoking a joint? Or like, does she actually have some peer-reviewed study that is accessible to us so we can make an informed decision ourselves? NAM also stated that there's no evidence to support or refute a statistical association between chronic effects of cannabis use and the risk of acute myocardial infarction, which directly, I mean, that's a direct contradiction to what she just said.
From her own resource.
She's citing the same source, so where is she seeing that?
She's going around and cherry picking different studies from all over the internet, just like anybody can do, just like I just did. Actually, I didn't. I used her source. That's the only source I have quoted, that we have quoted in any of this, is her source.
So it's not quite cherry picking. I feel like we're being a little more, I mean, what she's doing is disingenuous. We're just kind of breaking down her source and kind of showing her hypocrisy.
In my opinion, until she could produce evidence that it triggers a heart attack, I call bullshit. I throw the bullshit flag out there on that one.
I go further than bullshit. I think she needs to be held accountable for that statement. I mean, when you make such a bold statement, you're telling millions of people that the medicine they're using might cause a heart attack. In any other medical situation, you would need some sort of legitimate evidence to back that up. I mean, if I went out right now and said Advil can give you Alzheimer's, and I was a public figure and I was spouting that, there would be legal repercussions for that. But in the day and age we live in, there's no legal repercussions for misguiding patients, or, you know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, yes. Again, she's making statements. I have recordings of her saying that her goal is to do no harm. She says it over and over again. We must do no harm. What is she doing to us? What is she doing to these people? Throughout this entire thing, she said the term smoking marijuana several times like that. Just this condescending little meh, meh, meh. She has an issue with smoking overall. Smoking cigarettes is nasty. It's bad for you. We all know that. That's okay, fine. That's her. But she is mixing up cannabis smoking and cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking that you could smoke 2 packs a day, over and over again throughout the day. You don't smoke nearly as many cannabis cigarettes, joints, blunts.
I would like to.
Yeah. For sure would like to try. Regardless. So her big issue here is smoking, and how bad smoking is. Smoking. She's hammered that word over and over again. One of the claims that NAM has made, the conclusions that NAM has made, that there was a pilot placebo-controlled trial that randomized cigarette smokers who wished to quit smoking to receive 400 UGs. I don't know what that is. I guess that's not even a U. Whatever that is. So 400 of something. Inhaled cannabidol or inhaled placebo for 1 week. Those participants were instructed to use the inhaler when they felt the urge to smoke. The reduction in the number of cigarettes smoked per week was higher in the cannabidol group than the placebo group. So there is evidence stating, and this isn't about smoking so much because it does look like they used an inhaler, that cannabis use actually helps people quit smoking cigarettes. If her big issue is smoking, there is evidence here stating that cannabis use can help people stop smoking cigarettes. How awesome is that? We need to get more people off of cigarettes.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something we all can agree on. I mean, the evidence is as clear as it gets with cigarettes. And yet it's still totally legal to go buy as many as you want and smoke them out in public and do whatever you want with them. But if cannabis can help people get off of them, you would think someone who's so anti-smoking would be a little bit more on board with an alternative like cannabis. There's inhaler form, there's vape forms, there's topical forms, and people are finding relief and stop smoking. Like you said, I feel like she should be on board with it. Maybe we should educate her. Maybe we can get her on the show one day.
You may think that you're protecting us from ourselves, but you're not. You are harming us. When we have somebody like me who is losing weight, who can get down to such drastically low weights that they have to do, surgically implant, feeding tubes into me. When we have people that are dealing with much more serious conditions than myself, much less serious conditions, none of that matters. We need to do what is best for us. We need to be able to smoke now and then, or every single day, every hour of the day if we want.
You are doing harm when you're keeping, patients from accessing the medicine they need.
You are doing harm when we have legitimate, real human beings who were in pain, who were over-described opiates, you are doing harm when those people who are now addicts and who are reaching out to cannabis to try to get off of those things that they do not want to be on, and they want to be able to smoke a joint to get off of those pills that are extremely harmful, that we have all kinds of all kinds of studies that prove how harmful opiates are to people and addiction. That's harmful to people.
You're doing harm when you cause somebody to go to the bar after work and grab a beer because that's legal, rather than going home and just being able to smoke a joint. You're doing harm when people are having to turn to alcohol or don't have the option to get away from alcohol with cannabis. I've spoken to many patients who have stopped drinking completely, where they were everyday drinkers and completely stopped with medical marijuana. You're doing harm when you keep people from having access to that.
You're doing harm when somebody is in the middle of a panic attack. And I don't mean just they're just having a little panic. I mean full-on anxiety, panic attack. And they have tried vaping, and they have tried, and that's that's a whole nother issue. But vaping is not full entourage effect. It is not whole flower. They need to be able to smoke in that moment to calm them down. You are doing harm to their body and their system by allowing that stress to continue to build up in them.
I won't be anonymous. I'm one of those people you just spoke on. I mean, it's not something I deal with often, but I do deal with panic attacks, full-fledged shaking, hyperventilating. I mean, it's nothing pretty. It's not something anybody should have to deal with. And I can tell you firsthand, smoking whole flower completely will stop it directly in its path. I will completely calm down. Everything chills out. My heart stops beating. I can breathe again. Vaping doesn't do
your heart
that.
Stops breathing.
It doesn't stop. Doesn't stop.
Don't tell Senator Harrell your heart stops beating.
Yeah, I might get misquoted on that. My heart stops beating 300 beats per minute, and it returns to a normal calm pace. But I absolutely agree, especially for panic attacks and things like that. Whole plant entourage effect is the medicine for those types of patients.
Just to kind of wrap up this little segment of everything, if Senator Harrell's true concerns are to do no harm, if she truly has concerns about smoking, I don't think that she should be making that decision for all of us regarding our health. All the evidence points to we don't know. Really, that's what the evidence clearly points to, is that we don't know.
And we don't need people in political power perpetuating these terrible stigmas or nonsensical, if you will, remarks about detrimental effects on health when, like you said, the evidence is unclear. It's inconclusive. But what is clear is that a lot of people are finding relief. A lot of people are increasing their quality of life with this medicine.
It's time for the review of the week with Strain Slayer critiquing the best medical cannabis Florida has to offer.
What's going on, guys? It's Strain Slayer coming at you with another strain review. Today's review is going to be on Move's flower cups. The strain is Lemon Bubba. My batch came in at 22% THC. These come in a 3.5 gram flower cup, ceramic tamper-proof cups, if you will. I like to call them my little flower eggs that I crack open to get to the little goodies. This Lemon Bubba, again, it comes in at 22% THC. Really, really crazy terpene profile. Very citrusy, very lemony. It's a limonene in there, which is great for gastrointestinal issues, great for uplifted, euphoric feelings. It's got some cushy undertones for sure. It's definitely got some of that dank, diesely, kind of old school OG Kush kind of smell to it, but the majority of the terpene profile is definitely lemon, which is one of my favorites. So the parent strain is Bubba Kush. This is a Bubba Kush mixed with a lemon Kush, so double Kush of lemon. Super heady for an indica. It's very body numbing, but there's a very, very heavy cerebral side to this indica with the Lemon Bubba. Great strain to wake and medicate with or use right before bed. Honestly, this is probably my favorite flower in the state of Florida right now. I would definitely smoke this flower morning to night in any situation. Big shout out to Move for growing this beautifully grown, amazing smelling Lemon Bubba.
I did my research last last week I looked on the OMMU, the Office of Medical Marijuana Use in the state of Florida. At that time, there was 212,001 patients in the registry.
Wow.
And something I've been kind of rolling over in my brain lately is that I am that one patient. And you, Strain Slayer, you're that one patient. And Jen in Stewart, Florida is that one patient. And the little girl with epilepsy is that one patient. And the man with cancer is that one patient. And that one patient is all of us who have met each other, who have formed this community and developed these friendships and these families that even if we're dysfunctional and if somebody is more like our weird perverted uncle than our brother or our sister, we are still a family and all of this together. And I present to the state of Florida that 212,000 people together make that one patient that's left over. And you guys need to take care of us. I'm so tired. I'm so sick of being treated like a criminal.
No, I couldn't agree with that anymore. And I like the way you put that. I am that one patient, and you are, and I think we all need to treat it that way. And I'm tired of being treated like a criminal. I'm tired of the stigmas. I'm tired of whispering. Like, that in itself is so old. I'm tired of like looking over my shoulder before saying things. Like, I just want to be treated like an adult doing something that an adult does on their own time.
Exactly. Just if somebody's having a glass of wine, it's no different, you know. So 212,001 patients are on the registry. And one of the proposals that's being made by Senator Harrell and that was approved by the House last week was that people would need a doctor, a second opinion, which is actually kind of a third opinion because you already have to have your primary or other doctors send your cannabis doctor the information to begin with. And one of their arguments was that people that were terminal would have a waiver for this. They would not need to get this second opinion, third opinion from an outside doctor. What really pisses me off about that is I'm tired of being categorized. I don't feel that it is fair to say that somebody with anxiety has less problems than somebody with cancer. Yes, the severity of the condition is absolutely vastly different. But for politicians to categorize us and to say that, well, because this person is terminal, then we'll go ahead and we'll let them smoke. And I wish I had recorded it because Senator Harrell did start to make the statement and she stopped herself and she backed herself up from saying it, that terminal patients wouldn't have to worry about pneumonia.
Oh my
because
God.
They were at end of life. She didn't say it. Like I said, she didn't complete the statement, but you could tell that's where she was going with this. She stopped herself from saying it. That's really fucking ignorant. I don't think it's fair and I don't think it's right for them to determine based on condition whether a person can smoke. And based on it, again, it's ignorance because just because a person is technically terminal does not mean they're at end of life. There are people living with long-term cancers that will be alive for years. That argument is completely invalid and it pisses me off.
No, yeah, I agree. Ignorance is the best word for that. You know, you're going out there, you're speaking to the public and supposedly on behalf of the public in our best interest, you're trying to do no harm. And yet you're making statements like that. That's just ignorant. And that is harmful that, you know, and like you said, to try to categorize us based on some sort of ailment we have, there's a lot more to life. There's a lot more to the quality of life than just some label a doctor may have slapped on us due to our current symptoms, you know?
We need symptom relief. We all do. We all deserve it. We all deserve symptom relief. Even if it's a more severe condition, a less severe condition, we deserve that break. While I'm just like ranting and raving and talking about all things these are the things that piss me off, and y'all about to find out what makes Betty blunt.
Yeah.
I think one of the other big things is that we as patients have jumped through all of the state's hoops. We have paid the doctors outrageous amounts of money. We have paid them their $75 every single year. Not $75 the first time and then a $30, $25 renewal. $75 every single year and $75 for both of our caregivers if we choose to have caregivers on top of that. We've done all of those things right. A lot of us gave up our smoke because they said, no, we can't smoke. We gave up our whole flower because we didn't have whole flower for a long time. We did everything right. And if we choose to smoke to relieve our symptoms now, we are still criminals in the state of Florida. What the fuck is wrong with us?
It's absurd. How is that criminal, but what they're doing is not considered criminal? And that's my biggest thing, is like what they're doing is so much more criminal than me breaking open a ceramic pod to get to my flour. The fact that they're even putting them in pods is just absolutely ridiculous. And they're not taking into consideration health. They're not taking into consideration patients and the fact that they're actually using this as a medicine.
They're not taking in cost effectiveness. The fact that many patients cannot access medical marijuana legally in the state of Florida because it is so expensive that they cannot afford it. So they continue to risk themselves. They continue to be criminals in the state of Florida's mind by using medication in the black market.
You see people selling these black market cartridges now that are full of all types of pesticides and all types of other health issues that we didn't even have. We wouldn't have these issues if we had whole flour. It's tested. It's very obvious. It's clear. You can see what you're getting. You don't know what you're getting in these black market vape cartridges or all this other stuff. And it's just to continue this prohibition. And that's what it is. I mean, that's really what they're doing, is they're trying to continue the prohibition of cannabis, the smoking ban. You're stopping these patients from
accessing relief.
That's it.
I mean, for your own fears, which is a whole nother thing that just really pisses me off while I'm at it. It's a whole nother thing that makes Betty blunt. I heard quotes like this: "I'm squirming in my seat. I'm scared." I heard somebody say that they were afraid that we are using this as an excuse to lead to recreational cannabis. Oh, and I want to say to all you guys is enough. I don't care about your fears anymore. You are politicians. Your job is to make this law work in a reasonable way and not deny us smokable cannabis. Is obviously what everybody does with cannabis. They smoke it. It's evident. I am fed up.
I feel that, though. The thing is, the fact that we're even having to have these committees and boards and trying to write up these new laws is absolute bullshit. We voted on this twice already. The first time we had more votes for medical cannabis than Dick Scott had, and yet Dick Scott stayed in office and medical cannabis got denied. We had to try again, and we succeeded with the majority. We voted on smokable as well as the topicals and ingestibles and everything else.
Judges have backed this up, by the way.
Absolutely. The judges backed it up. And here we are, 2 years later, and we still can't smoke cannabis, which is something we initially voted on, something that is a constitutional
right.
It is a constitutional right. It is.
It absolutely is.
It's, I just can't believe that we're still in this situation. We've already voted on it. So why are we still bickering about the little details here and there? The majority spoke, and that's your job as a politician, is to fulfill what the majority wants.
My plea to the politicians is to stop being so fearful, to stop cherry picking, to stop Googling the phrases that you want to find, to actually look up studies or accept the fact that we don't have enough studies, but that there is no evidence that smoking is so harmful to us that it's killer. Please stop making this decision that smoking is so evil and is going to kill all of us that it takes away our options and our rights to relief of our symptoms.
It's old school fear mongering, and it just hasn't stopped, honestly. I find it absolutely, I don't know if the word hilarious is a word to use, but kind of hilarious that I see these signs, billboards, and commercials saying drive baked, drive baked, get busted? Yeah,
it was something like that. It just so everybody outside the state of Florida knows that so much of the dispensaries' money has to go into a fund for education. I believe that's the way they have it set up. There's so much of a percentage of money that has to go into a fund for education or a fund for medical marijuana awareness, I guess is the more appropriate thing to say. And what they spent that money on, they ran these ads. They ran them on TV. They ran billboards, radio commercials, and it demeaned cannabis users. It demeaned patients. It made fun of them in the ad. So this is what Strain Slayer is talking about. Just to back up just for a second, what he was saying. Yes, that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. It definitely demeaned us. To say drive baked, I mean, so to use that type of lingo for medical conditions. I mean, we're not baked. We are relieved. We're relieved. We're medicated. We're not baked. We're not stoned. We're not these stereotypical words that Hollywood and the news and these politicians like to perpetuate. And so for them to run an ad like that, I say hilarious, but I'm really just like shocked. Sad. Yeah. I can't believe that I'm living in this world still.
Yeah.
Like where all of the evidence is showing that this is a great plant. And then there's still people out there like that's their form of education, is saying, oh, well, if you use your medication while you drive, you're going to get arrested and potentially have, all these consequences. And especially hypocritical here in the state of Florida, being the pill mill. I've personally seen and heard of tons of stories of people on all these pharmaceutical medications getting in accidents and falling asleep at the wheel and causing all these catastrophes. I've never once ever, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've never seen a single commercial and advertisement. I haven't even had the doctor mention not to drive on these different pharmaceutical medications.
Yeah, there's a sticker on the side of a pill bottle, and that's it.
It's on the sticker, but yeah, where was the ad saying, "Hey, don't take OxyContin and drive," or where was the ad saying, "Don't take, your sleeping medication and drive"?
And where are the ads that ridicule those patients, the people that are on OxyContin and passed out in their car, and ridicule them, quite frankly, because that's what those ads kind of were. They really were insulting.
They don't treat Xanax patients like they're criminals. Why are we doing this to cannabis patients? And
the answer to that, sadly, is that we pissed off the politicians and the powers that be when 71% of us voted in medical marijuana, and now they're doing everything in their power to punish us.
That's the truth. And I'm a firm believer that there's a lot of financial ties in that. I think there's a lot of money. I think people are out to lose a lot of money when cannabis really blows up here, when patients double. I mean, we're at 200,000, but in the state of Florida, that's really, that's minuscule. That's nothing. We have a lot of patients to reach out to and educate. And I think once people really get the word and they realize that cannabis is helping, it is legal, and they do have access to it, we're just going to watch that number increase, tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. Once they make this a more cost-effective program, they get rid of vertical integration, which I'm not sure is going to be possible at this point. I think it's set in place, and I think there's a lot of people that, again, have money that want to make sure it stays set in place, unfortunately. But the good news is that we are reaching people. I hope that you guys out there listening to this, if you are as disgusted and fed up with what you heard from our politicians as we were today, I hope that you share this with your friends that maybe are not in cannabis enthusiasts, that maybe don't really believe in cannabis. I hope that you get them to listen to this, and I hope that you get to listen, that they understand and listen that ignorance is still ruling and controlling our health. Even if they don't agree with it, I think that they would be frustrated. The 71% of those people voted for this, and even if not 71% of the people are using it, so therefore, I think those people would be as pissed off as we are that we are still struggling like this.
Definitely. I mean, regardless of the issue, like I said, it's when you have the majority and you vote on something, that's their only job as politicians, is to follow through with what we find is fit for us as the populace. So, but yeah, I really, like you said, I hope that you guys do share this, especially with some people that are on the fence or maybe that aren't that keen on what's going on right now in the political world of Florida medical marijuana. There's a lot of deception. There's a lot of money making decisions that are holding us back. Underhandedness for sure. And it's corrupt. I think corrupt is a great word for it. This whole system it's not fit for us patients, but we've come together. We've already made a bunch of changes, and there's a lot of changes to be made, but there's a lot of great groups out there that are making a lot of headway.
A lot of good people, great people. There were so many people that stood up last week in that hearing that were advocates. I'm not going to name them all by name, but it was as frustrating it was to listen to all of the other bullshit. It was so enlightening. I was just so ecstatic to hear the positive things and hear those people stand up for themselves and for all of us.
Definitely. And it's like, it's almost a silver lining to their darkness or whatever, if you will. If nothing else, all of the attempts that they're making to stop us is helping us to grow and to get stronger and to come together as a community and make these changes. So I guess in a way they're helping us, but they're hurting us in the process.
Yeah, they really are. And I think that's really a good time for us to kind of wrap things up, and thank you guys for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please make sure to go to iTunes and Google Play and give us a review. That really will help us get started, and it'll help bring more listeners and more followers to the show.
And what do they search to find us?
Candid Cannabis Conversations in the podcast. If they're going to iTunes or Google Play, then they're just going to search for Candid Cannabis Conversations. But that being said, you can also find us on the web at www.candidcannabisconversations.com. See, I'm a woman. I shouldn't say it like that. We should get Slayer to say it.
CandidCannabisConversations.com.
You're a little scary at that. But you can also find us individually at our websites. Mine is askbluntbetty.com.
And you can find me at strainslayer.com.
And of course, both of us on probably all the social media platforms, but I think we're more active on Facebook and Instagram.
Definitely. Instagram for sure, at strainslayer. And then yours is at askbluntbetty.
Correct.
Excellent. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate it, and we will see you in the next episode, or we'll talk to you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day and stay medicated.
Thank you for listening to Candid Cannabis Conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to leave us a review on Google Play and iTunes. Blunt Betty and Strain Slayer can be found on all the popular social media outlets, as well as CandidCannabisConversations.com. Again, we appreciate you following us and look forward to you joining us for the next episode.